You are listening to Mining Stock Education, where you'll learn from the top leaders in the natural resource sector and uncover quality mining investment opportunities.
You're basically looking at an opportunity to see where blowout high-grade VG intercepts with a very large disseminated breccia structure. And we just got the permit for Rivard. So we want to get to a point where we can have these world-class properties plus some production to finance the exploration. And then you get a really appealing investment opportunity for retail and institutional because, quite bluntly, it hasn't been done in decades.
I'm Bill Powers, and this is Mining Stock Education. Thank you for tuning in. In today's show, you're going to be getting a company profile interview of a company that I own in my portfolio, and that is a new sponsor for the virtues and investment value proposition that you're going to learn about today. The company is Trillium Gold Mines. The website is Trillium Gold. The ticker symbol in Toronto is TGM, and on the OTCQX, which is the best of the OTC exchanges in the States, you can find it under the ticker TGLDF. Joining me today is Russell Starr. He is the president, CEO, and director. And I know Russell from Oren Resources, where he was an integral executive working with Ivan Bebic, a frequent guest of this show. And he also was an integral part of Ivan's other company, Caden Resources, the sale of that to Agnico Eagle for $205 million. So Russell, welcome onto the program for the first time.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Bill. I really appreciate it.
So you have a background in finance, in the academic side. You raise money in the mining sector. You've been an executive, but delve a little more. Share with my audience your experience and why you're qualified to lead the role of Trillium Gold.
Yeah, sure. I'm like your Bay Street TV show profile. One of the good guys, though. I spent a little bit more time in university, though, than your typical Bay Street executive. I have a master's in economics. I have an MBA, and I started my PhD in economics. And basically, the head of the economics program at McGill was also the chief economist at RBC. And I managed to slip in through the back door and get an interview for the prestigious dealer training program, landed on Bay Street, basically worked as an institutional salesperson, institutional trader, corporate finance, funded and helped start literally Echelon Wealth Management, which is a very large Canadian broker-dealer, still own a small portion of that, but basically got tired after about 15 years of just being sort of an intermediary and trying to clip a coupon or a commission from a trade or a deal. And I wanted to try and build something. And it was right at the time that Ivan, the Guerrero Gold Belt was actually quite prestigious at that time. And Caden had the property there, and we didn't even have El Barqueño. So I joined Ivan. And honestly, I'd credit Ivan for most of what I know on the corporate side now. But as many children need to do, they grow up. Not that I'm a child, but I grew up a little bit, and Ivan and I are still great friends. I'm obviously following Fury and Tier 1 and Sombrero very, very closely. I'd been with that company for 5 years, but I found this amazing company, great share structure. Red Lake, as many of your readers probably know, or your listeners, there are Tier 1 jurisdictions, Tier 2, Tier 3, and Canada and Red Lake are one of the Tier 1 global jurisdictions. And a friend of mine, a broker of mine, was like, look, man, we have this asset that in 2013 was trading at a $200 million market cap, 55,000 meters of drilling, high grade everywhere, 18 kilometers away from the Red Lake mine by road. Our market cap now is like 20 million. Do you have any interest in being the CEO? And so, I stepped into it, and that was only 6 months ago. And since then, we've built what I like to think is a very, very credible near-term production and exploration company in Red Lake. But we have grander visions, as I've discussed with you. So that's kind of a bit of the background, and we can get into any of the specifics you want.
How about touch on a couple of your technical team? Because one of the things that stood out is that they have a lot of experience working in this area already.
Yeah, I think so. Bill Patterson's our head geologist, our chief technical officer, if you want to call him that. Bill has basically spent the majority of his career in Red Lake. His wife is Evolution's land manager. And I think he joked the other day that we have about 150 years of combined experience in Red Lake in our technical team, which is Bill, Denise, Paul Bark, Abby Wright. We literally have just brought on, and he's consulting right now, but I think he was the fourth or fifth employee of Leapfrog. And for anyone who's really deep into the sort of geek side of building an asset or building a mine, Leapfrog is basically the modeling software that all the majors and the relevant juniors use to understand what they're looking at underneath the surface based on drill holes. And so we're really, in my opinion, I said this to you earlier, and I would have learned this, but learned it from Ivan. You have to act like a major or a mid-tier. You have to build a team like a major or a mid-tier to actually really get the attention of a major. There are companies that hit a great drill hole and one thing leads to another and they're taken out, and those are the 1%ers or the 0.1 percenters. But when you're actually trying to build that credible, critical momentum, you need to surround yourself with people who are better than you are. And that's what I've done with this technical team. They're top notch. They're Red Lake born and bred. They understand the structures, what occurs in the jurisdiction. And very interestingly, Bill had spent the last probably 7 years while the mining sector had been kind of crushed or underneath the thumb of the rest of the world. He spent his time with the Ministry of Mines. And so he understands where all of the dead bodies lie, but he also understands where all of those big opportunities are. And so him combined with me, plus all the rest of our team, we've managed to bring in this really exciting portfolio of assets.
And key to that, your flagship is the Newman Todd asset. You referenced already that asset alone, when you only owned half of it via 50-50 JV, drove up a market cap multiples of where you're at now. Now you own 100%. Walk us through this project. There's some,
So 2010 to 2013, it's interesting. Bob Singh, who is the driller for Great Bear, was the driller for Red Star. And that was the 50-50 JV between Confederation and Red Star. To complicate matters, Red Star is now known as Heliostar, and we're known as Trillium, but we're basically the same companies, just changed names and obviously changed people. But it was a market darling. It was a 50-50 JV. Both companies had $100 million market caps. And they were hitting, you can find it on our website, but 30 of 12, 10 of 15. These were world-class intercepts by anyone's standard at the Newman Todd project. And so when I came on board, we'd actually earned into close to 83.5%. But again, when you're dealing with an asset that's laden with gold, you never want to have a JV, really. You want to own 100% of it. So we're now sitting today with 100%. If you go look through our press releases, you'll see the deal that we actually did and successfully closed with Heliostar. And we own 100% of that. And then we also picked up the neighboring property, which is called Rivard. And two of the very interesting characteristics for Newman Todd and Rivard are, one, 99% of all the drill holes were from surface down to 400 meters. And for anyone who understands Red Lake, you get big blowouts of mineralization down a kilometer. And so you're really only scratching the surface at Newman Todd. And they did put a couple of deep drill holes in. I believe one was down a kilometer and it intersected 3 times greater than 10 grams per ton. But like I said, 99% was from surface down to 400 meters. And just to give your listeners context, I think I was told before I joined that 51% of all drill holes hit greater than 10 grams per ton. So there are very few assets in the world that can actually say that or suggest that. Rivard, our neighbor, was owned by the Rivard family. And this is truly, call it a North American, you could call it an American or a Canadian success story. It was a family who owned it. There's VG everywhere. Like, I was on the property. There's a video out of me standing on it, and there are quartz veins that trend from Rivard into the Newman Todd structure. And the Rivard family would walk around with augers and dynamite drill a hole, blast it, recover the VG, literally VG. It's almost like a gold rush type story. And then they pour doré and sell it. And they did that for 3 decades, but no one had ever really drilled at depth there. And so the analogy I always use is, okay, you've got the Newman Todd structure. Consider that to be the Usain Bolt of 100-meter runners in a gold structure. And then you've got these Rivard veins, and I would call them like the world's #1 supermodel. And where the Rivard veins intersect with the Newman Todd structure, what's their child going to look like? What's Usain Bolt and the #1 supermodel in the world's child going to like? It's almost like Tom Brady and Gisele Bündchen. You're basically looking at an opportunity to see where blowout high-grade VG intercepts with a very large disseminated breccia structure. And we just got the permit for Rivard. That was I believe it was the press release today. So days seem to blend into days with COVID. But, it's going to be very, very exciting right now, because not only do we have the one drill that'll be turning on Newman Todd, and now we have the Leapfrog expert basically modeling out where we should be looking, and better controls, better understanding of the structures. But we also have another drill that we can run at Newman Todd to try to chase these high-grade VG veins. Then the call it fraternal or maternal twin is Gold Center. And I don't talk about it as much because there's really been no drilling in it. But I was pointing out to you, Evolution's Red Lake mine, or the famous Goldcorp Red Lake mine. Evolution's on the record for wanting to explore more at depth in specific areas to increase their production profile, because anytime you have a mill that's running at less than 100%, you're missing out on cash flow and profits. And literally where they're exploring and mining is 250 meters away from our property boundary. And so you have this once in a lifetime opportunity to sink a couple of drill holes into what really legitimately, there's no hyperbole here, legitimately could be the continuation of the Red Lake mine. And so, people maybe scratch their heads a bit on, I think it was our acquisition that just occurred. And there were a few Quebec properties and some properties further to the north on that sort of Birch-Uchi trend. But the reality is our focus is Newman Todd, Rivard, Gold Center, and bringing those to near-term production, because you've got, a lot of people don't understand, you've got 4 mills running at less than full capacity in Red Lake with gold kind of all over the place. And if you can bring an asset that's 18 kilometers away from a profitable producing mine where they're exploring but still not at 100% capacity, you instantly create a cash flowing opportunity for shareholders where you don't have to put up any infrastructure. That's huge. Your costs are substantially lower and your upside is substantially higher. So it's great exploration properties, but in our perspective, very near-term opportunities from a catalytic perspective.
And you are engaged in a current drill program already. Your treasury's cashed up. So bring us up to speed for my listeners that aren't familiar with the story.
Yeah, so we raised 13 million maybe 4 or 5 months ago. All long-only funds, very, very supportive shareholders. The benefit of having been on Bay Street, Wall Street, and having covered hedge funds and long-only funds is you can kind of discern and understand what the trading strategies are. So we're cashed up. We have enough cash to last us until December. So a full year's worth of drilling. We originally press released 25 to 35,000 meters, but because the gold market's improving, we're going to do more. We could probably do upwards of 60,000 meters, to be honest. But what we press released just this today was 30 to 40,000 meters between Newman Todd and Rivard. And then that other incremental drill program would obviously go to Gold Center. We are running AI programs on our other exploration properties. We're trying to be efficient. This is another thing that Oren really taught me about with their world-class technical team is the gold industry is not being very efficient. There haven't been a lot of technological advances. One of the ones that you can use is AI. And so we're running AI across that entire Confederation Greenstone belt to try to hone in on areas we should focus on without spending millions of dollars on people walking up and down and just getting at that early stage advantage for particular opportunities on it.
So Russell, the near term for people that are buying shares today, the near term catalyst would be these drill results, right? From these three projects. What's the time frame from seeing when those are going to come in?
Well, we've already had drill results from Newman Todd. It can be nothing short of being considered a huge success. Our initial drill program, we're up to an additional 7,000 meters that we drilled on top of that 55,000 meters. And our first, I think it was 3 holes or 4 holes, we hit 100 gram per ton intersection, 7 of 15, and what looks to be a brand new structure on the Newman Todd project. We just press released our most recent drill holes. We still have 4, by the way, in the assay lab that we're waiting on. We just press released 5 holes where we hit VG on 3 out of 5. And, we had 0.3 meters of, I think it was 126 grams per ton. Finding gold is not going to be hard on Newman Todd. So continuation of our drill program on Newman Todd, and now this tense but excitement of what is Rivard going to give, because it's never been drilled to depth. There were some drill holes back in, I think, 2003 by a company called E Energy, or maybe 2006. But no one's ever really sat down and said, okay, Newman Todd, Rivard, how do these fit together? So we're going to be the first company who's able to test that. So that's hugely exciting, and that's occurring literally right now. So 4 holes in the assay lab, 1 drill rig turning at Newman Todd, the other one starting at Rivard next week. So investors should be expecting drill results in the next 4 to 6 weeks, basically continuing for the entire year. And then, of course, we're going to have to figure out, we've applied for the permit for Gold Center, and we anticipate we'll get it probably in the next 30 days. And then it's going to be, are we drilling from Evolution's property and their underground workings? We're going to have to talk to them. I'm not saying that that's going to happen. We have the utmost respect for them. They're a world-class company. Or are we going to be drilling really deep holes off of our property? And we just don't know the outcome of that yet. But even that's a bit exciting for investors. What's going to come of that is are we going to be able to get to a really friendly outcome with Evolution? And one of the bonuses of that 150 years of experience and Bill Patterson is they all know each other. So it's friendly. It's like, hey man, this is what we'd like to do. Are you interested? So it's not one of those contentious situations.
Your share price has done well in the last 6 months, but you also look at where you're going, and you look at your valuation relative to other drill stories. So I think you're about 60 million Canadian now, but there are drill plays out there that are over $500 million that don't have a resource, but you're aiming towards production. So talk to us about how you see the valuation of the company relative to what you have and what you plan to have.
Look, we're clearly trading below what I believe is our reasonable market value. And, you don't have to go too far back to figure it out. 2013, in a worse gold environment, Newman Todd alone had a valuation of 200 million. So 200 million, in my opinion, is a low end target of what we're shooting for. But then you add in Leo, which is, 8 kilometers away from Dixie, which is now $1 billion company. And then we own a good chunk of the Confederation Greenstone Belt, which is what Dixie sits on. And then, we've added in some of those Larder Lake properties. And we also have more properties up in the Birch Uchi area, where I know quietly some mid-tiers are starting to sniff around. So look, you add value to shareholders through the drill bit and through discovery, but our goals and our view on where we should be and what we should be doing, and quite frankly, what the industry should be doing, is there's a severe shortage of mid-tiers. There's a severe shortage of creativity. Why now, in what I would view as probably the best opportunistic gold market we've seen in 20 years, why aren't we building another Kinross? Why aren't we building another Eldorado? And so, it's a lofty vision, but you always have to have a vision, and you always have to own a lot of your company, and you always should have a tight share structure. And these are things that the world has just forgotten about because no one cared about really truly mining precious metals or base metals for almost a decade. But these are the things we need to move countries and economies forward. And we're finally seeing inflation. And so, it's lofty, but in my opinion, with Newman Todd and Gold Center, we can drive a tremendous amount of value. And then if we do our jobs right, there are a lot of interesting near-term cash flow opportunities that have had their share structures blown out. There's a bunch that aren't that far from us that sit on the Red Lake structure who maybe need some consolidation. And so what we're trying to do is reach out to people and say, look, I get it. We're an exploration story, but check out our near-term production. Check out our proximity to a producing mine. And saying, look, we need to reinvigorate this climate, this investing climate. We can't just keep doing it where you're raising $1 million or $2 million or $3 million and you're drilling 6 drill holes, praying that you're going to hit, basically bonanza grade and your share price is going to go to the moon so that you can raise even more to try to do it again. Those are not business plans. Those are not visions. Those are prayers. I want to run a business. I want it to be profitable. And clearly exploration is not profitable. It's a consumer. So we want to get to a point where we can have these world-class properties plus some production to finance the exploration. And then you get a really appealing investment opportunity for retail and institutional, because quite bluntly, it hasn't been done in decades.
And what's the time frame? 3 to 5 years for a plan like that?
Oh, look, if I wait 3 to 5 years, I think the gold price is at 3,000 to 5,000, and I've probably missed the boat. This is something that, like I've mentioned, master's in economics, started my PhD, have an MBA. It's the biggest farce, in my opinion, that, and I'm just going to point fingers, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to insult any Americans, but I'm going to insult the government, and in particular, your statisticians. Inflation is rampant in the US. Everything that in 1980 would have been part of the calculation of inflation is effectively being removed to try to satisfy a view of we're not in an inflationary environment. But you just have to look at soybean prices and corn prices, the price of copper, the price of all of the base metals. It's here, and it's happening, and it's just a mathematical fantasy that's occurring right now. So your timeline isn't that long. I think you've got the Biden government who's going to basically print money again at extremes that we haven't seen even in the most recent. So my goal is 3 to 6 months to pick up some production.
Wow. So you're moving fast, and that would be in a share for share transaction?
Yeah, you don't want to use your cash for that type of stuff. And quite frankly, we don't have enough cash to do it. I mean, maybe there's a world where we could identify a transaction and a banker viewed it as an incredible opportunity and you could do a concurrent financing and the acquisition. But I think a better way to do it is to try to find management teams that see the world I see it, forward thinking, who are maybe understanding that their share structure is blown out, or that they've been trying to do it for a while, or maybe I just market better, or basically a 1 + 1 = 3 type opportunity. It's not going to be easy. Like I said, there's a bunch in Canada that we're going to reach out to and have reached out to, and it's not going to be easy. But it's a goal, and it's something that I'm communicating to structures, to investors, and it's something that I want people to know, yourself, your investors, because you need to hold management accountable at all times. We have to do what we tell you. So, for example, I said to you, our cash could last us until Christmas of next year. That's great, but waiting until your cash runs out is the worst time to raise money. So if we get a really bullish gold environment in the next 6 months, which I think is going to happen, clearly I'm going to tap the market for some money because we've got to keep on exploring. But in that perfect world scenario, if you can marry a little bit of production with this world-class exploration and near-term production portfolio, you immediately become relevant. You are then on the radar screen, and that's our goal.
Russell, you mentioned you were recruited into this position. How'd you acquire your shares, and what skin in the game do you have?
Well, just check the insider buys. Anytime I'm not restricted, I buy. So I typically go into the market for between 2,000 to 5,000 shares on a very regular basis. And then every now and then I'll pick up 15 or 20,000 shares. My current position, I think, including options, is maybe 2.4 or 2.6, which is more than that. I'll tell you exactly. I own 2 million shares, 500,000 warrants, and 400,000 options. So I'm almost at 3 million. So the 2 million I bought, and then of course you get warrants on the odd financing, which I have some, and then you also get some options. But I don't have a lot of options. It's you want to incent your team. You don't want to be the guy who's hoarding the options when you're running a company. So,
and what percentage of the company does the management own?
Management and insiders are really quite high. 38% of the company is owned by management and insiders. 38% is owned by retail. And of that 38% in retail, about 50% of it is very, very close and friendly shareholders. And then 22% is owned by institutions, which we just brought in on that financing in, I think it was September, and it closed in October.
Well, we'll be following up as drill results come back in. But in the meantime, are there any final thoughts you'd like to leave with my listeners?
Look, hold management accountable. I have a few adages in terms of how I look at investing. Make sure management has a large proportionate ownership, because I think often you find management that owns a lot acting in your best interest. And like I said, hold me accountable. I'd like to be on your show often and talking about what I'm doing. And if for whatever reason you see that there's something that I haven't followed through on, merging with another company, you can't hold me to, because that's not super easy. But you can hold me accountable to drilling and trying to generate as much value as possible for shareholders.
Excellent. The website again is trilliumgold.com. A link to that will be in the show notes. In the show notes, I'll also put a link to the presentation, which, by the way, is very well done. Whether you're a retail investor or you're a sophisticated investor that has technical knowledge, I think that you'll find the presentation very interesting. It was very well put together. The ticker symbol again in Toronto is TGM, and on the OTC, you can find it under the ticker TGLDF. Russell, thanks for coming on the show today.
Thanks a lot, Bill. I really appreciate it.